Hello. One second, one second, one second. Hello, guys. I am Sasi Kumar from VIT Sindhi Dhanbad, and today, uh, today this is day 21 of improving my communication skill. And now, as we know, now that we have already completed one book, and now we have to start one new books named Rich Dad Poor Dad. So actually, our mess is off, and now in next morning I will go to the our home at 7 and 8 a.m. So I'm not going to wake up at late night, so that I can wake up in early morning and then I go to my home. So without wasting any single second, I am going to read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. So first chapter is 20 by 20 hindsight. It it was 20 years ago today. The Beatles released the SGT People's Lonely Hearts Club Band album on June 1967. It was an immediate commercial and critical success, spending 27 weeks at the top of the albums chart in the UK and 15 weeks at number 1 in the United States. Time magazine declared SGT Peppers a historic departure in the progress of music. Time magazine declared SGT Peppers a historic departure in progress of music. It won 4 Germany awards in 1968 as well as Album of the Year, the first rock album ever to receive that honor. Rich Dad Poor Dad was released 20 years ago on my 50th 50th birthday on 8 April 1997. Rich Dad Poor Dad was released 20 years ago. Rich Dad Poor Dad was released 20 years ago on my 15th 50th 50 50th birthday on April 8, 1997. Unlike the Beatles' story, the book was not an immediate commercial success. It was not a critical book success. In fact, the books released the hailstorm of criticisms that followed was quite the opposite. Rich Dad Poor Dad was originally self-published because every book publisher we approached turned my book down. A few rejections offered comment like you don't know what you are talking about. A few rejection slips offered comments like you don't know what you are talking about. I learned that most publishers are more like my highly educated poor dad and then my rich dad. Most publishers disagreed with my rich dad's lessons on money, as did my poor dad. 20 years today. In 1997, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a warning, a book of lesson about the future. In 1997, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a warning, a book of lessons about the future. 20 years later, Millions of people around the world are more aware of Rich Dad's warning and his lesson about the future. With 20, with 20 by 20 hindsight, many have said that his lesson were pro prophetic predictions come true. A few of those lessons are Rich Dad's lesson hashtag one. The rich dad the rich don't work for money. 20 years ago, a few publishers turned my book down because they did not agree with Rich Dad's number one lesson. Today, people are more aware of the growing divide between the rich and everyone else. Between 1993 and 2010, over 50% of the increase in the national income in the United States went to the wealthiest 1%. Since then, things have only gotten worse. Economists at the University of California found that 95% of the income gains between the year 2009 and 2012 also went to the that wealthiest 1%. The lesson: the increase in income are going to entrepreneurs and investors, not to employees, not to be not to the people who works for money. Rich Dad lesson: savers are loser. 20 years ago, most publishers went 20 20 years ago, most publishers vehem- vehemently disagreed with the lesson of from Rich Dad. For the poor and middle class, saving money is a religion, finances salvation from poverty, and protection from the cruel world. For many people, calling saver loser is like talking God's name in vain. The lesson: a picture is worth a thousand words. Take a look at the chart of 120 years of the Dow Jones Industrial Average and you will see why and how savers become loser. The chart shows there have been three massive stocks market crash in the first 10 years of this new century. The chart below illustrates these three crashes. 120 years of the Dow. Here is the graph. The first crash was the dot-com crash around the year 2000. The second and third crash were the real estate crash of 2007, followed by the banking crash of 2008. 2008, the giant crash of 1929. When you compare the first three crashes of the 21st century to the giant crash of 1929, you gain a perspective of how truly giant the first three crashes of this century were. Hmm. In the graph, you can see 1929, and these three are 2000, and 2009, most probably 2008. 2000, 2008. Printing money. The chart below show that after each crash, the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve Bank began printing money, saving the rich. Between the two between the years 2000s to 2016, in the name of saving the economy, the Bank of the World kept cutting interest rate and printing money. While our leaders want us to believe they are saving the world, in reality, the rich were saving themselves and threw the poor and middle class under the bus. Today, interest rate in many countries are below zero, which is why savers are losers. Today, are the biggest loser are the poor and middle class, the people who works for money and save money. Rich Dad lesson: your house is not an asset. 20 years ago, in 1997, every publisher who sent a rejection slip, criticized Rich Dad's lesson that your horse is not an asset. Hi Ravi, you can say good morning, but yeah, I think you have to prepare for your JEE exam. हाँ भाई अभी हम पढ़ रहे हैं कुछ देर बाद. Okay, just few chapter. Okay, Ravi, prepare, practice your PYQs and all because you have no such time. In January, you have exam, and you know Chhat, Durga Puja, and every time you will be distracted. So prepare for that. 10 years later, in 2007, when subprime borrower began to default on their supreme mortgage, the world's real estate bubble burst and millions of homeowners found out the truth is that lesson the hard way. Their house was not an asset. The real problem, most people don't know that the real estate crash was not really a real estate crash. Poor people did not cause the real estate crash. The rich caused the real estate crash. The rich created financially engineered product now known as derivatives product. Warren Buffett called has called weapon of the mass financial destruction. When the financial weapon of the mass destruction started to explode, the real estate market crashed, and poor supreme borrower were blamed. In 2007, there were an estimate 700 trillion in financial derivatives. Today is the estimated there are 1.2 quadrillion in financial derivative. In other words, the real problem has gotten bigger, not better. Rich Dad lesson: why the rich pay less in tax. 20 years ago, a few publishers criticized Rich Dad Poor Dad for disclosing how and why the rich pay less in taxes. One states that that lesson was illegal. 10 years later, in 2007, President Barack Obama was running for re-elections against former Governor Mitt Romney. 10 years later, in 2007, President Barack Obama was running for re-election against former Governor Mitt Romney. When it was disclosed that President Obama paid approximately 30% of his incomes in tax and Governor Romney paid less than 13% in taxes. Mitt Romney began the downhill slide that would cost him the election. Texas against were a focal point in the 2016 US presidential election. Rather than find out how people like Mitt Romney and President Donald Trump pay less in taxes legally, the poor and middle class get angry. While President Trump promised to reduce taxes for the poor and middle class, the reality is the rich will always pay less in tax. The reason the rich pay less in the taxes goes back to the rich dad's lessons number one. The rich don't work for money. As long as a person work for money, they will pay tax. Even when presidential candidate Hillary Clinton was promising to raise the taxes on the rich, she was promising to raise the taxes on those with high incomes. People like doctor, actor, and lawyers, not the real rich. 20 years ago, although Rich Dad Poor Dad was not an immediate success, like the Beatles' SDT People's album, Rich Dad Poor Dad did not make the New York Times bestseller list by the year 2000 and stayed on that list of nearly 7 years. Also in the 2000, Oprah Winfrey called I was an Oprah for the entire hour, and as they say, the rest is history. Rich Dad Poor Dad had become the number one personal finance books in history, with sales of the Rich Dad series of books estimated at nearly 40 million copies worldwide. Was there really a rich dad? Millions have asked. Was there a million have asked? Was there really a rich dad? To answer the questions, you can listen to Rich Dad's son, Mike. When he was a guest on Rich Dad radio show, you can listen to that program by going to the richdardio.com. Rich Dad, richdardio.com. Rich Dad Graduate School. Rich Dad Poor Dad was written as simply as possible so that almost everyone could understand my rich dad's lesson. For those who want to learn more, as part of the 20-year celebration, I wrote Why the Rich Are Getting Richer. What is financial education really? Why the rich are getting richer goes into greater, more specific details on that rich dad really thought his sons and me when it's come to money and investing. Why the rich are getting richer in Rich Dad Poor Dad for graduate students. It's graduate students for Rich Dad student. It's graduate school for Rich Dad student. A warning and an invitation. Invitation. While I did my best to keep my while I did my best to keep why the rich are getting richer as simple as possible, what the rich really do is not easy or easy to explain. What the rich really do requires real education. Financial educations not taught in our school. I suggest reading Rich Dad Poor Dad first. Then, if you want to learn more, why the rich are getting richer may be for you. Thank you for 20 years, 20 great years. To all our reader, past, present, and future, all of us, the Rich Dad Company, say thank you for 20 great years. It is our mission to elevate the financial well-being of humanity, and what starts with one life and one person at a time. Okay, so the first chapter is that word at introduction, and right now I am just, you can say, one summary tab or one thing, uh, introduction part. So today I have to finish anyhow introduction part so that from next day I will continue with chapters. So introduction, rich dad poor dad. Having two dad offered me the choice of contrasting point of view, one of rich man and one of a poor man. I had two fathers, a rich one and a poor one. One was highly educated and intelligent. He had a PhD and completed 4 years of undergraduate work in less than 2 years. He then went on to Stanford University, the University of Chicago, and Northwestern University to do his advanced studies, all on full financial scholarship. The other father never finished the eighth grade. Both men are successful in their careers, working hard all their lives. Both earn sustainable income. Yet one always struggle financially, the other would become one of the richest men in Hawaii. One dad leaving ten of millions of dollars to his family, charities, and his church. The other left bills to be paid when he died. And did. Both men were strong, uh, charismatic, and influential. Both men offered me advice, but they did not advise the same thing. But both men believe strongly in education, but did not recommend the same course of study. If I had only one dad, I would have had I accept or reject his advice. Having two dads offered me the choice of the contrasting point of view, one of a rich man and one of a poor man. Instead of simply accepting or rejecting one or the other, I found myself thinking more, comparing, and then choosing for myself. The problem was that the rich man was not rich yet, and the poor man was not yet poor. Both were just starting out on their careers, and both were struggling with money and families. But they had a very different point of view about money. For example, one dad would say, "I love of money is the root of all evil." The other said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." The love of money is, as a young boy, having two a strong father, both influencing me as me was difficult. I wanted to be a good son and listen, but the two fathers did not say the same thing. The contrast in their point of view, particularly about money, was so extreme that I grew curious and intrigued. I began to start thinking for long periods of time about what each was saying. Much of my private time was spent reflecting. Much of my private time was spent reflecting, asking myself questions such as why does he say that, and why, and then asking the same question of the other dad's statement. It would have been much easier to simply say, "Yeah, he is right. I agree with that," or to simply reject to the point of view by saying, "The old man does not know what he is talking about." Instead, having two dads whom I loved forced me to think and ultimately choose a way of thinking for myself. As a process, choosing for myself turned turned out to be much more valuable in the long run than simply accepting or rejecting a single point of view. One of the reason the rich get richer and the poor get poor, and the middle class struggle in debt is that the subject of money is taught at home, not in a school. Most of us learn about money from our parents. So, what can poor parents tell their children about money? They simply say, "Stay in a school and study hard." The child may graduate with excellent grade, but with a poor person financially programming mindset. Sadly, money is not taught in a school. A schools focus on a schoolistic and professional skills, but not on financial skills. This explains why smart banker, doctors, and accountant who earn excellent grade by struggling financially all of their lives. Our staggering national debt is due to large part of highly educated politicians and government officials making financial decisions with little or no training in their subject of money. Today, I often wonder what will happen when have millions of people who need financial and medical assistance. They will be dependent on their families or the government of financial support. What will happen when Medicare and Social Security run out of money? How will a nation survive in teaching children about one note? Maybe something is here. I'm going to read it. 20 years ago, the debt clock. Fast forward 20 years, and the US national debt is beyond a staggering. At present time, it's nearing $20 trillion. $20 trillion. That's trillion with a T. Okay. So, how will a nation survive if teaching children about money continues to be left to parents, most of whom will be or already are poor? Because I had two influential because I had two influential father, I learned from both of them. I had to think about each dad's advice, and in doing so, I gained valuable insight into the power and effect of one thoughts on one's life. For example, one dad had a habit of saying, "I can't afford it." The other dad forbade those words to be used. Instead, I asked, how can I afford it? One is a state. One is a statement and other is a question. One let us of the hope and other force to you other forces you to think. My soon to be rich dad would explain what we are automatically saying the words I cannot afford it. Your brain has stopped working by asking the question how can I afford it? Your brain is put to work. He did not mean that you should buy everything you want. He was fanatical about exercising your mind. The most powerful computer in the world, he had say, my brain gets stronger every day because I exercise it. The stronger it gets, the more money I can make. He believed that automatically saying I cannot afford it was a sign of mental laziness. Although both dad works hard, I noticed that one dad had a habit of putting his brain to sleep when it come to finance, and the other had a habit of exercising his brain. Although both dads worked hard, I noticed that one dad had a habit of putting his brain to sleep when it came to finance, and the other had a habit of exercising his brain. The long term result was that one dad grew stronger financially and the other grew weaker. It is not it is not much different from a person who goes to the gym to exercise on a regular basis versus someone who sit on the couch watching television. Proper physical exercise increase your chances for health. Proper physical exercise increase your chances for health, and proper mental exercise increases your chance for wealth. My two dads had opposing attitude and the that affected the way they thought. One dad thought that the rich should pay more in tax to take care of these less furniture. Fortunate. One dad thought that the rich should pay more in tax or take care of those less fortunate. The other said taxes punish those who produce and reward those who don't produce. One dad recommended study hard so you can find a good company to work for. The other recommended study hard so you can find a good company to buy. One said the reason I am not rich is because I have you kids. The other said the other said the reason I must be rich in because I have kids. Because I have you kids. One encouraged talking about money and business at the dinner table, while the other forbade the subject of money to be discussed over a meal. One said, when it comes to money, play it safe, don't take risk. The other said, learn to manage risk. One believed, our home is our largest investment and our greatest asset. And the other believed, my house is liability. No, the other believed my horse is liability, and if your horse is our largest investment, you are in trouble. Both dads paid the bill. Uh, both dads paid their bills on time. Yet one paid his bills first, while the other paid his bill last. One dad believed in a company or out the government taking care of you and your needs. He was always concerned about pay raises, retirement plans, medical benefits, sick leaves, vacations days, and other perks. He was impressed with two of his uncles who joined the military and earned a retirement and entitlement package for lab after 20 years of active service. He loved the idea of medical benefits and PX privilege the military provided its retirement. Retires. He also loved the tenure system available through the university. The idea of job protections for lab and job benefits seems more important at times than the job. He would often say, I have worked hard for the government and I have entitled to these benefits. The other believed in total financial self-reliance. He spoke out against the entitlement mentally and how it created weak and financially needy people. He was emphatic about being financial component. One dad struggled to save a few dollars. The other created investment. One dad taught me how to write an impressive resume so I could find a good job. The other taught me how to write a strong business and financial plans so I could create jobs. Being a product of two strong dad allowed me the luxury of observing the effects different thoughts have one's life. I noticed that people really do shape their lives through their thoughts. For example, my poor dad always said, I will never be rich, and the prochi becomes reality. My rich dad, on the other hand, always referred to himself as rich. He would say things like, I am rich, I am a rich man, and rich people don't do this. Even when he was flat broke after a major financial setback, continued to refer to himself as a rich man. He could cover himself by saying there is a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, poor is internal. My poor dad would say, I am not interested in money or money doesn't matter. My rich dad always said money is power. The power of our thoughts may never be measured or appreciated, but it's become obvious to me as a young boy that it was important to be aware of my thoughts and how I expressed myself. I noticed that my poor dad was poor not because of amount of money he earned, because, which was significant, but because of his thoughts and actions. As young boy having two fathers, I become actual aware of being careful about which thoughts I choose to adopt as my own. Should I listen to my rich dad or to my poor dad? Although both men had tremendous respect for education and learning, they disagreed about what they thought was important to learn. One wanted me to study hard, earn a degree, and get good job to earn money. He wanted me to study to become a professional, an attorney, or an accountant, and to go to a business school for my MBA. The other encouraged me to study to be rich, to understand how money works, and to learn how to have it work for me. I don't work for money. Her words he will repeat over and over. Money works for me. At the age of 9, I decided to listen to and learn from my rich dad about money. In doing so, I could not listen to my poor dad, even though he was the one with all the college degree. A lesson from Robert Frost. Robert Frost is my favorite poet. Yes, obviously our also favorite poets in English, yeah, from foreign. That Robert Frost. I think you have, you remember two-way like this in forest. You see two way, then choose that way where not people had go very less, like that of a story. Robert Frost. The road not taken. That same story poet is written here. Although I love many of his poems, my favorite is the road not taken. I each lesson almost did. The same story I had talking about just few seconds ago. The road not taken to roads covered in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel boat. And we one traveler long I stood and looked on one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps a better claim. Because it was a Grecian wanted weird to ask uh, to ask for that the passing there had warned they really about the same, and both that morning morning equally lay In leaves, one step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how many, yet knowing how will it on to way. I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere age and its hence to roast hours into a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And that has made all the difference. Over the years, I have often reflect. Over the year, I have often reflected upon Robert Frost's poems, choosing not to listen to my highly educated dad's advice and attitude about money was a painful decision. But it was a decision that shaped the rest of my life. Once I made up my mind about whom to listen to, my education about money began. My rich dad taught me over a period of 30 years until I was 39 years. He stopped once he realized that I knew and fully understood what he had been trying to drum into my often a thick skull. Money is one form of power, but that is more powerful in financial education. Money comes and goes, but if you have the education about how money works, you gain power over it and can begin building wealth. The reason positive thinking alone, though, the reason positive thinking alone does not work is because most people went to schools and never learned how money works. So they spend their lives working for money. Because I was only 9 year old when I started, the lessons my rich dad taught me were simple. And when it was all said and done, there were only six main lessons repeated over 30 years. The book is about those six lessons put my simply as possible, just as simply as my rich dad put forth those lessons to me. The lessons are meant not to be answers, but guideposts that will assist you and your children and your families to grow wealthier no matter what happens in world to increasing chance of uncertainty. So this is the whole introduction. It's how you should think about money and here you take the decisions after listening both the dads, poor dads, and rich dads. And he decided to listen their rich dads to how to make money and how money works and how to be strong in taking risk. And from next day, one chapter, first chapter of Rich Dad Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. Okay, the first chapter is the rich don't work for money. As though 1965 means 40 approx 40 pages in chapter 1. So I think as much I will possible to read in one day. I will read. Otherwise, I will take it 2 day, or maybe I will read without coming online. Sometimes, as we have planned to do some other things to improve my communication skills, so I will do that. And as I am going to homes to so that maybe some problem can become in between our session, but I will try to take a time where less distractions can happen. So yeah, that's the things. And now I'm going to do dinners. Then I will take rest. In the early mornings, I will go to my home. I will go to my home. Okay, guys. Thank you to being here. thank you to Ravi. That's my friend. He's preparing for JEE, taking drops. So I hope he will crack their JEE exams and get good college. And thanks to Priyansu, Kumar Priyansu, to giving this book. And as I have some other works, and from today onwards, I will work on one project. Actually, my schedule is too much busier at that moment. I have this one as taking important, but now I have to prepare for gate. I have to means covering the our semester syllabus, and then I have one other course that I have to complete, and one Google program that I am following from last 4 to 5 months. So I have to complete that as well just before 4 October, so that I have to do that work, that things as well. So that's why I'm not doing other things for improving my communication skill, because I can these things early after that, because I have only 3 means uh, 3 days and 7 days for doing for that Google things, Google Arcade program. So I have to focus on that as well. So from next time after, and I have participated in one events at IIT Kharagpur, so IIT Kanpur. So I have to go there. So I have to practice for that as well. Hi Nurag, thank you, bro. Yes. Thank you, Anurag, as our session is going to end. But I hope from next time, if you have any suggestion, please suggest me after watching my video. So, uh, I'm going for a dinner. Okay. Good night, guys. Bye.